What is this country, and why are all the best Guilty Gear players from there? Moreover, how come when looking at almost any other traditional esport in comparison to the FGC, we don't see nearly as much LGBT representation? And this isn't only among top competitors, but the communities as a whole. Now, I think there's quite a few innate differences between these two communities that could help us answer this question. But first, what should even be considered a traditional esport? For the purposes of this video, I would define a traditional esport to be a team-based international video game scene played almost exclusively in an online setting, with funding primarily coming from either developers of said game or from major sponsors. These would be your CSGOs, League of Legends, Valorants, Overwatch, StarCrafts. You get the picture. Roughly 5 to 6 guys sit down, stare at their monitors, and yell for like 30 minutes to an hour until one team comes out on top. While the FGC, up until fairly recently, has always kind of relied solely on a small fraction of the player base dedicated enough to keep it alive. I mean, take Smash Melee for example. Nintendo has actively been taking shots at this game's community for ages now, with no signs of stopping, leaving competitors often competing for pennies and bragging rights. Alright, but then that raises the main questions of this video. Why are fighting games so gay? Why did this happen? And with that, why does any of that even matter?
We have been in this for a while. Another minute of scramble. Who's getting it the floor there? Across the stage. Only is your champion. Mickey Ortiz takes it.
Joshua attacking. It's the reversal.
Magi gets the down air.
Magi is your combo breaker champion.
First and foremost, when I say gay, I'm really referring to people who identify under the LGBTQ+ umbrella as a whole. I just think saying why are fighting games so gay is funnier, and it's just a much better title. Now, if you're not familiar with the foundations of either the FGC or traditional esports in general, I think it's important to go over both as a fun little story time. I won't act like I know the ins and outs of every single individual community, but the two that I have followed very closely throughout the years have been the Overwatch League and the Smash Melee scene. I think these both serve as pretty good examples of both of their respective competitive communities and showcase how different these two worlds can really be. Let's start with the Overwatch League. It started in late 2017 following Overwatch's release the year prior. Now, where OWL differs from a majority of other traditional esports is the pure money put behind it in the beginning. Instead of rooting for your favorite esports org like NRG or Envy, you'd be rooting for the San Francisco Shock or the Dallas Fuel. These teams, eventually totaling to 20 between the East and West regions respectively, were owned by parent companies and had huge sponsors backing them. A single spot for a team to be a part of OWL was in the ballpark of $20 million, and players would be signed contracts for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, while also competing for millions each season. Blizzard, the company behind Overwatch, really wanted to make their esports scene like a traditional sports league, and it was incredibly successful for a time. Now, the main issue in my opinion with this model was the lack of community interaction it allowed. Well, yes, you could go root for your home city or favorite players, there was really no good way for someone looking to get involved in top-level play to do so. Eventually, Overwatch Contenders and the Overwatch Collegiate Series were founded, allowing high-caliber players to compete for a shot in OWL, but OWL just felt so far removed from even the highest echelon of play that a majority of people could access in ranked. The fact that Blizzard never really supported many community-run tournament scenes definitely did not help here, and due to the sheer cost to keep it running, the league ended up dying out earlier this year. Okay, but what does that have to do with LGBT representation, you're asking? And hold on! We have another history lesson first. I'll tell you, jeez. When we look at what the Smash scene is built upon, I think it'll make a little more sense. I could be here all day going over the extensive history of Smash Melee's highest highs and lowest lows, but there's already a load of videos covering its vast 20+ year history. I'll touch on the key factors for my point today though, and that's the lack of support from Nintendo, who are the publisher behind all the Smash titles, specifically when it comes to those who want to take their games more seriously. While Nintendo did technically allow tournament series like EVO and the Panic Cup to feature Melee, it's never ended well. So this leaves the community to create its own tournaments and build its own esport from the ground up. Every major and super major tournaments today have their roots deep in Melee's past, with a great example being the Genesis series. Originally just being a NorCal tournament with just over 350 entrants in 2009, it now regularly attracts the most amount of players of any series each and every year. With how infrequent and sometimes completely inaccessible these majors are to some people, they'll often turn to their local scene. You can find a Smash local for almost any of the entries in the series, going on at least monthly in a lot of places, especially in North America. These locals are what I believe make fighting games in general so unique in comparison to traditional esports. By the very nature of them, fighting games are meant to be played in person, side by side, at all levels of play, while every traditional esport is played almost exclusively online in your room alone until you reach the top. A 2019 study from the ADL shows that 53% of online multiplayer gamers who had reported being harassed in game believe that they had received this targeted harassment based off of things like ethnicity, religion, ability, gender, and sexual orientation. The report shows that 38% of women and 35% of LGBTQ+ players reported harassment on the basis of their identities. Now, when it comes to locals in the FGC, they provide players a chance to interact with people who have the same hobby as them in person, face to face. And it creates this really cool and unique sense of community among players. Everyone has to stick together in order to keep the game that they love alive and well. And this leaves people who might be an issue in one way or another kinda just getting weeded out. I think Dara, a longtime Smash Bros. Caster, puts it best. You, being at an in-person weekly event, have the social pressures to not be a piece of shit. The way I see it, you can be an asshole online and most likely nothing will come of it. But being in person, seeing the same group of people every week, it just kind of de-incentivizes that behavior as a whole. Are you starting to see that correlation here? You know, between the whole expressing yourself and not fearing judgment and stuff while in person thing? On a side note, I wanted to add this just to kind of wrap back around to OWL and other traditional esports. Looking at this chart from the ADL study on which games report the most online harassment, I find it kind of funny that a lot of these games have introduced tournaments or events exclusively for women and gender sexual minorities as of late. The most successful, in my opinion, has been Overwatch's Calling All Heroes tournament, but this has more created a space for this group to compete rather than providing an actual fix to the issue. And personally, I think the rules for registration are a little strange to say the least, but what can you do? They say that if you go to any local fighting game event on any given week, you'll almost certainly find a trans girl practicing some fighting game you've never heard of before on the setup she brought from home, and she will teach you how to play it if you stand there for long enough. But what's the real correlation here? I mean, you could argue that even though online, traditional esports still foster a sense of community among fans and players alike. However, I would argue that due to the very nature of it being online, you lack that sense of comfortability that comes with connecting with someone in real life. It's truly difficult to explain, but the feeling you get from seeing other people from all different backgrounds come together just to enjoy the game that they love in a shared, safe environment with your own two eyes, it just provides this overwhelming sense of comfort. This focus on in-person events has helped queer people, particularly those transitioning to new identities with potentially new names and new pronouns, feel safer and more comfortable than they might otherwise feel in other competitive gaming spaces. With this sense of community, everyone starts to get to know each other, and there's really no room for bigotry in the space. As Pliff, the managing editor for Team Liquid, puts it in their article, if the best sole bad guy player you knew was gay, then you need to accept that and learn from them, or get rolled by sole bad guy forever as your punishment for being a bigot. But queer people didn't just spawn in when the light level was low enough. One of the main reasons I think fighting games are so popular in this regard are their extremely diverse cast. Now, it hasn't always been this way. I mean, do you want left or right Ryu? But I feel like fighting games were the first video game genre to really push the boundaries of who, and I guess what, were represented in their games. I feel like the first trans character I ever heard of, albeit quite controversial and not the best represented one, is Poison from Final Fight. Disregarding all the weird shit that went on with her, she is still the first trans character in a video game that I was made aware of like a decade ago. However, when talking gay characters in fighting games, I think there's no better place to look than the Guilty Gear series. I mean, the comment at the beginning wasn't just a cherry-picked example. All kinds of gay people are drawn to the series. Hell, I've even tried my hand at it, and I play exactly who you think I would.
Slow playing, huh?
Johnny Guilty Gear, because fuck yeah. I mean, we're just like so similar, you know, appearance, personality. Anyways, there are various LGBT characters within the series' lifetime, but I think the two standouts here are Testament and that other one we'll get to, I promise. Saving us all some sanity, I won't try to get into Guilty Gear lore here. Testament has been present in the series since its first installment in 1998 and has always been of an ambiguous gender, eventually being labeled as agender by Riku Ozawa, a rep for Arxis. The reason for their lack of gender? Well, because they've transcended human existence, of course, and there's no need for gender past our mortal plane. I think their appearance, alongside their voice, specifically in Strive, does a really good job in exemplifying their androgyny, and also, they're just super cool. Then we get to the star of the show, Bridget Guilty Gear. For her, I do think it's necessary to briefly cover her lore, and therefore the discourse surrounding it as well. If you want a more in-depth look at both of these, I highly recommend checking out this video. It is very funny. So Bridget first appeared in Guilty Gear X2, and even back in 2002, she was the center of all of those, well, everyone is gay for blank memes, due to the fact that she was labeled as a femboy. Now Bridget, at that time, did identify as a boy. However, due to her village's superstitions surrounding twin boys, her parents had raised her as a girl to avoid having to kill her or putting her up for adoption. Her main story in X2 revolves around her leaving her village in search for bounties for cash. And in this game, she is very set in her identity as a man, even having one story where Johnny mistakes her for a girl and is embarrassed after the fight to find out that she is in fact a boy. This all changed in her introduction in the latest entry of the series, Guilty Gear Strive, where she was released as a DLC character in 2022. Now with an updated design, updated moveset, and an updated scary new gender identity. See, Bridget isn't really involved in the main story of Guilty Gear, so she spent the last 2 decades just kinda doing her own thing. Now, being an accomplished bounty hunter, her story in this game revolves around her talking with other various characters, trying to figure out her identity. This eventually leads to her just flat out saying that she is a woman now.
Happy trails, cowgirl, or, cowboy.
Cowgirl is fine, because I'm a girl.
I think this tweet does a really good job at explaining what happened after this was revealed 4 years before her release. The worst guy you knew, who didn't even care about Guilty Gear, was pissed about this, and all the most annoying people from every crevice of the internet were coming out claiming that there was some mistranslation or something. It got so bad that Daisuke Ishiwatari, the director of the Guilty Gear series, had to put a stop to it and flat out said that Bridget had always been a trans woman, but had to face parts of herself that she tried to ignore during the events of X2. I know personally that I had become really into Guilty Gear almost exclusively because I really liked Bridget. Something about her design and Strive just really speaks with me, and also fighting with a semi-living teddy bear and using a yo-yo and roller skates as your weapons, it's just so appealing and cool to me, and it's also just so unbelievably trans. I only use my interest in Bridget to eventual interest in the Guilty Gear series as a whole as a personal example of a common occurrence in the FGC. You see a character that you really like, whether it's for their playstyle, flashy moves, or even having an identity you can relate to, and you're just drawn to that series. I never have, and probably never will play Street Fighter, but something about Jamie and SF6 I think is just so cool, and this has led me to get more and more into Street Fighter related stuff as a whole. Obviously there are so many other queer fighting game characters that it would take up too much time talking about all of them, but I know I'm not alone when it comes to being drawn into something purely because you feel represented. I want to end this segment by clarifying that nowadays, fighting games aren't the only games to have major LGBT representation anymore. While working on this video, both Venture and Clove released an Overwatch and Valorant respectively, being each game's first non-binary rep. Overwatch has several LGBT characters, which I think is super cool, and I'm happy that they started to finally embrace this by adding more icons and banners last Pride Month. However, the GOAT non-binary rep is still Psy from Bloons Tower Defense 6, completely predating these posers. I was trying to think of a good transition into this section, but I mean the jokes just kind of write themselves here. So I've been going on and on about why the FGC is a perfect environment for a growing LGBT community to thrive. However, I haven't given any real examples this far. I decided to take a look at 3 top players that I really enjoy watching and that I think have great stories behind their success. But first, I really want to stress that queer representation isn't just in the players, it's everyone involved in making the scene function. From the people that often don't get recognition because they're working in the background, to Bobby Scar's they pronoun on comms, queer people play indisputably important roles within the scene. If this includes you, thank you for all you do. You definitely do not get enough recognition. And if you're not queer, it's okay. You could be included in that thank you too. First up, I want to talk about Jessica Romala Neva, formerly known as Deb Online. She is a top-tier Xrd player turned VTuber content creator. To be fully transparent here, I was not aware of who Romala was before starting my work on this video. However, through my research into this topic, I just think she had a super cool story. Romala started out playing Potemkin and was one of North America's best players in the early days of Xrd. She eventually switched to the real trans girl icon, Soul Bad Guy, and her results only went up from there, eventually winning EVO 2019. And this EVO win is what I wanted to highlight. In an article showcasing queer representation in the FGC, she states that she had started HRT a week before this win. Romala says that she probably overperformed because she was feeling so much better, and then goes on to say how it was a life changer for her. When that mental weight finally gets removed, it makes you feel like you can do anything, and it's just so freeing. While with Strive's release, she retired from competing as regularly, though her impact on the Xrd scene was definitely no small one. I also kind of find it funny that the 2 second places she got when she competed in Strive were to 2 other queer icons in the scene, Umisho and Dominique Sonic Fox McLean. I mean, come on, you literally can't talk about queer people in the FGC without talking about them. Just a short scroll through their Wikipedia page just shows dub after dub. Sonic Fox is the GOAT of so many different games, it's actually crazy. Any of the Mortal Kombat games, any of the Injustice games, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strives, and who could forget Skullgirls are all in contention for GOAT status. Now, just what is Sonic Fox's identity, you may ask? Well, I think they said it best themselves when they won Gamer of the Year.
I really say is that I'm gay, black, a furry, pretty much everything a Republican hates, and the best esports player of the year, I guess. Thank you so much.
Sonic Fox, from someone who never really followed either Mortal Kombat or Injustice during their prime, is a weirdly controversial figure in my mind. Like, I see so many people talk shit on them, but I just really don't get it. From what I can tell, it's one of those they're so good you're tired of seeing them kind of things that I dubbed the proper effect. Regardless, some of my favorite FGC moments and stories come from Sonic Fox. For example, when they gave a kid their first place CEO medal right after winning. They gave their 5th place medal to the same kid the year prior, but wanted to bring back a gold just to give it to him. And I think that is so sweet. But my personal favorite story comes from their grand finals match at EVO 2018 against Goichi and DBZ Fighters. From getting their ass absolutely destroyed 3-0, then switching chairs to Goichi, and then proceeding to 3-0 him directly back was and still is so incredibly entertaining to watch. I just think from their pure, unrivaled poverty game god status, the absolute insanity that is their tournament history, and just overall really heartwarming backstory is why I think Sonic Fox is one of the most important queer figures in all of the FGC's history. However, last and certainly not least, being probably my favorite Melee player of all time, right behind her Hungry Box of course, is Sasha Magi Sullivan. Magi is just so cool, and it doesn't help that she plays Falco, the coolest character in Melee. Absolutely no bias, of course. She was the first woman to ever be ranked top 100 in Melee, debuting at number 97th in 2018's Melee Top 100. Now sitting at a very respectable 17th in the world on the 2023 version of that list. And from looking through various videos and interviews that she's been in, talking about not only her Melee experiences, but her just being trans experiences, I have deduced that we are the same. Obviously joking, of course, but a lot of her experiences being trans, not only in the Melee scene, but in her real life, I can really relate to. And because of this, I've always really looked up to her. I think one of her most iconic moments is beating Mango in the Falco Ditto at Genesis 6, shortly after making her debut on Melee's Top 100. There are just so many amazing moments in the set, but I think Ludwig puts it best here.
Yeah, Magi is so like, it comes down to if Magi
Still has
can
it!
stay composed
What the fuck?
with a sick combo.
How?
Her playstyle is just so fun to watch. I've rewatched the montages on her channel countless times, and I know I'm not alone. It makes me really happy to see how much the community seems to like her, with Woo Magi's filling the chat every time she's on screen, and having such a wholesome relationship with the kid.
She wins 2 games because his song is shit. Oh my god, is Magi cooking? I fucking hate Magi fans.
There's more trans women at the top of Melee's ranking now more than ever, and while not necessarily paving the way in this sense, there's something really special with Magi being the first to ever do it. And I know there's several people in Melee that look up to her for a lot of different reasons. I did ask her for an interview for this very video back in March. She still has not gotten back with me, but I do have hope. Maybe she's just busy winning or something. I'll check back later. I'll let you know what she says. There's so many more amazing figures I could touch on, but I think you get the picture. I think having figures like this is so important because it just proves to you that it doesn't matter who you are. You could make it here if you have the drive and dedication to do so. And it's not just like LGBT people don't exist in the highest tiers of other esports, they're just way harder to come by. The only person that I can think of is Sasuke, who played in OWCS for Team Schmungus. And maybe I'm just not up to date with other games, but Overwatch is quite literally the only game I have ever seen any representation in pro play outside of exclusive leagues specifically for gender and sexual minorities. I think I'll end this section by saying it is so important to have someone to look up to when you're putting so much into your passion. And more often than not, people are drawn to others who have gone through similar stuff that they have. And being able to see someone that might just have a similar background as you do something that you're working towards is just so motivating to keep going forward. And that's where I come in. None under some variation of the tag Goldie, I've been playing both Overwatch and Smash since I was in middle school. Now, I am by no means an expert on anything I've mentioned thus far. Sorry, I guess it's a little little late to be saying that, but I do think I'm the perfect person to talk about this. I'm a varsity collegiate Overwatch player for the University of Kansas.
A little bit here that they just force out that turret, they can actually walk in after. It looks like their Lucio did just, I think his like monitor turned off or something.
I have almost 1,000 hours of Smash Ultimate alone, and attend events sometimes, but mainly just keep up with my local scene and my favorite top players. And oh yeah, I'm a trans girl getting a film degree, so I kinda check all the boxes. My experiences in both these communities have been very different when it comes to the whole last part. I do think it's important to clarify that I play Overwatch at a much higher level than I do Smash. However, I don't think that matters much here. So I mentioned previously that Overwatch is one of the few games that I think does LGBT representation within its game pretty well. I mean, the poster girl of the game was revealed to have a girlfriend just a few months after the game dropped, and I would say this is awesome, but unfortunately Tracer is also British, so it kinda cancels that out. Aside from Tracer, there have been several other heroes that have been revealed to fall under the LGBTQ+ umbrella in one way or another over the past few years, and I love that. I remember a long time ago, Jeff Kaplan said he wanted to make Overwatch feel like its heroes really came from all over the globe, with all different backgrounds, and I think the game really succeeds in this aspect. The player base, on the other hand, is a little different.
I don't like gay people. I mean, no, I'm not
actually going to showcase any of this for obvious reasons, but if you remember the ADL survey from earlier, you may also remember that Overwatch was a solid 3rd place on the harassment tier list. Now, last Pride Month, Blizzard added a bunch of Pride cosmetics to the game, completely free of charge, mainly just banners and icons of various flags with some heroes on them. The reaction to this was very, very split in the community. Regardless, I rocked both the trans and lesbian Pride flag icons pretty regularly throughout the year, and guess what? No one really cared. I play support, so in all honesty, I'm kinda in the majority, and not really talking to VC, I wasn't ever really targeted. But when I was targeted, it got bad. Like really bad. Sadly, I have blocked all the players that have messaged me after these games, so all I have left is this screenshot from one guy that did not stop spamming with basic transphobic talking points for like 20 minutes. As I said, I've been playing Overwatch competitively for years now, and I really can't care about this kind of stuff anymore. But obviously that doesn't make it okay. Like, talk shit about my Ana positioning or my awful Ajaxes all you want. But man, if you're really so upset after losing a single ranked game, maybe it's time to call it a night. And I do not want to get into the nightmare that is any woman trying to play a competitive video game and not get harassed every single match. I will say, however, every in-person event I've attended has been super cool. I mean, I'm not really a femme-presenting person, but from what I've gathered, since there's that social pressure that comes with being a person, it's usually a much more accepting environment. Those in-person events are few and far between in the traditional esports space, which takes us to my experiences at the Midwest's very own Sweet Spot 8. This is the first ever real tournament I attended, as the Midwest isn't really known for having the biggest events. Going into this, I knew I wasn't going to do that well. I was rusty as hell, but I didn't really care, because I had one goal in mind, and that was to meet Apollo Kage and Rister Mice, and have both of them sign my first empty estrogen bottle. At first, this just kind of started as a joke with the friend that I went with, but then I decided, fuck it, we ball. And when day one was wrapping up, I tracked them down. Surprisingly to me, both of them were so down to sign it, and they were both really nice, and that definitely made my whole weekend. However, after making a post on Twitter about this that I figured wouldn't go anywhere, AK retweeted it, and I felt like a spotlight was put onto me. I got way more interactions than I was used to, and not really being open about being on hormones at the time, I had no idea what to expect. To my surprise, however, it was all really positive, and on Sweet Spot Sunday, I had multiple people come up, recognizing me for my post, and we ran friendlies. I met a lot of cool people that day, and it was some of the most fun I had had in a long time, even farming some nobody on the melee setups. Obviously, this is all anecdotal, but being barely 1 month on estrogen at the time, and still not really having the confidence in my identity as a trans woman, it was a feeling that still hasn't gone away. Seeing everyone around be whoever the fuck they want to be, all sharing the same consoles with that same sense of safety. That feeling that it doesn't matter who you are or what stage of life you're at, if you're content with your identity or you're still trying to figure things out, it doesn't matter here. The only thing that matters is having the confidence to show up and just try your hardest to break it. Because chances are people won't judge you for you. They'll just judge your character and counterpick choices. And while I did go 0-2, maybe the real prize was the friends we made along the way. But also, just saying, if I hit that Arson Dare into up smash, I would have won my loser set, but that is neither here nor there, and I am not upset about it. I'm not, I swear. Asking myself why all this matters has honestly been by far the hardest part of this whole thing. Mainly because I don't think I can give the quote-unquote right answer. I think this is really one of those choose-your-own-adventure type deals, but here's what I have to say. To me personally, this matters because growing up, I never really felt like I was represented in anything I played or watched. To be honest, I think I watched one too many gender-bending episodes when I was little, but obviously I don't really count that. I think not only knowing, but literally seeing people like me succeed in something that I'm passionate about really gives me the motivation to keep moving forward. And not only in an esports kind of way, in a life kind of way. I wish younger me knew that someone who felt the way I did didn't need to feel ashamed, didn't need to hide themselves, and didn't need to hate that part of themselves. But instead, they could do something really cool with their life. And to me then, and to me now, being able to press buttons good is really sick. It's more than that, you know? I know now that in my life, I want to inspire and uplift other people through being someone that can be looked up to. And I know now that a big part of that is being able to put yourself out there and be someone worth being looked up to by being yourself. And as embarrassing and uncomfortable as it may be at first, having a space that you feel safe and welcome in is so important for those who may not really have that in their personal lives. So why should you care about any of this shit? Because we care. And that's why we're here for each other. Thank you.
To watch the movie Creed.
I think, like, am I crazy to say famously, what? You don't need tea to be good at Smash?
You don't need tea
to be good at Smash?
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, I don't know why I didn't know what you meant. Yeah.
You don't need testosterone.
Yeah, it's this like weird like thing. All you need is a
I think
good
many players have proven that theory.
Yeah. Like being trans makes you better at Smash, if anything, not testosterone.
They're cheating.
I've been wait, okay.
Oh my god. It wasn't Adderall this whole time.
We've discovered the new
You
epidemic.
motherfuckers.
It's a performance-enhancing
We're
drug.
on to you.
Cody shows up with some naturals.
All right, let's rock.